The Druid has been in a really good place in Phase 1, both in terms of DPS, the ability to tank, its healing capabilities, and even as a boomy. Possibly, balanced Druids are one of the most irritating classes to come across in World PvP. But like me, you may have leveled multiple characters to level 25 in Phase 1, and you're not quite sure which one you want to go the distance with and get to level 40 first, because you're probably going to get multiple characters to level 40, but which one's going to get the majority of your focus on the 8th of February? Well, I'm hoping I can help you out with your decision. We're going to look at the new abilities that you're going to get by level 40, and these are going to be the ones that just come from the trainer. We're also going to look at what new abilities or potentially really strong passives that you're going to get from talents now. We're going to take a look at the boot and belt runes, which, yes, while they've been data mined, we know the belt and boot runes are 100% guaranteed because Blizzard have shown us a couple for each class themselves. So the data mine belt and boot runes, I don't expect to change, but we're not going to talk about any of the head or wrist runes that have been data mined because I doubt they're going to be in Phase 2. We're also going to have a look at key items that are going to be available at level 40, which might get you excited enough to want to make your Druid your main. We're going to have a quick look at what Druids can get from professions, and then finally, how do I think they're going to perform overall? And then ultimately, is it the right class for you to focus on first in Phase 2? Before we get into the abilities, I just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Rested XP. Now, I can't imagine you've not heard of Rested XP, but with Phase 2 on the horizon, if you want the fastest possible way to get your new Druid, potentially, if you decide the Druid's the right class for you, to level 40 as quickly as possible, then following the blue arrow around and letting the hard work be done by the add-on is definitely worth the investment. The add-on is absolutely free to download and includes the guide up to level 20. Not only that, it also includes the runes that are available in the current phase, and of course, it will be updated for free in Phase 2 for all new runes that are going to come. So you literally just have a quick look and go, I need this rune, and then it will guide you around how to get it. No need to alt-tab out of the game and read a guide. Thanks Rested XP for sponsoring the video. A link is in the description and the pinned comment if you want to pick yourself up a guide. It is an affiliate link, so every guide you buy does help support the channel. So thanks very much. Let's get into the Druid abilities. Now, for every Druid spec in Phase 1, you've probably felt like you've missed some real key abilities that you didn't realise you really missed until you didn't have access to them. Well, come Phase 2, every spec of Druid is going to get multiple abilities that are going to be extremely useful and you've probably missed. Starting as early as level 26, so you're going to get your first level, and then you're going to have access to Dash. Now, I don't know about you Druids, but me personally, I've found myself pressing the dash keybind on numerous occasions, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I still haven't got it. Which can be quite annoying, but as soon as you ding, you are going to have access to it. So 5-minute cooldown, and obviously increases your speed by 50%. So at level 30, you're going to have access to travel form, and we know you're going to have your mount at level 40, but this is going to make a Druid so much quicker to level from 30 to 40, especially if you're out questing. If you've bear tanked at all, you'll know if you start losing aggro to random little mobs, they're incredibly hard to get back. Well, at level 28, you're going to have access to challenging raw. Whilst it's a long cooldown, it's extremely useful. Whilst you may look at Tranquility and think, oh, I only really want that as a resto Druid. No, this is absolutely amazing for every Druid, and it's one that I've missed personally when I start seeing everyone in my group taking massive damage in BFD and having no Tranquility to help the healers by topping everybody off. So definitely a really good addition for the Phase 2 toolkit. Level 32 for Feral Druids is absolutely amazing because as a Feral Druid, you'll probably know you've been spending a lot of your time sat on 5 combo points, not wanting to consume them on anything other than Savage Raw because the damage of Rip is pitiful. But at 32, you're going to have Ferocious Bite, which while the damage probably still won't be that amazing, it is actually going to be some nice instant damage. And even when you're running around questing, actually having a way now to just finish a mob off very quickly has definitely been something that I've missed, not having Ferocious Bite. So really cool. But that's not it. You'll also get access to Ravage, which is basically the Feral Druid's version of Ambush. So if there's a pesky little cloth wearer sat having a drink, you can stealth up behind them and bang them really, really hard. At level 40 as well, don't forget, Druid tanks are going to get even tankier with access to Dire Bear Form. Here's the key differences between just Bear Form and Dire Bear Form. If you are wanting to tank in Phase 2 as a Druid, it's going to be amazing once you get to level 40. Feline Grace at level 40 as well is worth a mention, purely if you like jumping off things really high. At least if you transform into cat form, you're going to take a lot less damage from falling. Level 40 is actually a really good level because not only have you just got Dire Bear Form, but you're also going to get Hurricane, which unfortunately on a 1-minute cooldown in the classic era version of the game sucks a little bit. But we have seen data mine runes that will probably help this out. I don't think in the next phase, but we'll find out soon. Also, being able to get Innovate is amazing because you'll be able to innovate your mages. I might be a bit biased. But Innovate, just being able to get massive amounts of mana back on a 6-minute cooldown, of course, is going to be absolutely amazing. And they're pretty much the main abilities that you're going to learn from the trainer. And as you can see, as a druid, you're really spoiled. We looked at the mage and there weren't really a mass amount, maybe 4 or 5 abilities, maybe not even that was actually worth talking about. For a druid, you get so much by level 40 that you just probably have missed a lot during phase 1. And as I say, the big ones for me is Ferocious Bite, definitely, Innovate, and 100% Travel Form. And then talent-wise, what you're going to be able to get for every spec, again, is just absolutely amazing. The unfortunate thing is while you can get all the way down to the bottom of the tree now, so Boom is going to get access to Moonkin Form, Feral's going to be able to get Leader of the Pack, and Resto's going to be able to get Swift Mend. There are a lot of specs that sort of rely on the 11 points in a secondary tree as well. When I say rely on, obviously it's just a lot better to be able to get all the way down in one tree and 11 points in another. So while yes, you're going to be able to get down to the bottom of the tree, an example for this would be as a Feral Druid, you can get Leader of the Pack, but you're going to lose 10% physical damage, and of course the big one being Omen of Clarity. The same would apply for power shifting. You can't take Leader of the Pack and be able to get 5 points in Furor to be able to power shift. So I think phase 2 for Druids, talent-wise, especially for Feral, is going to be one of the more irritating ones because you do have to sacrifice something. Whereas when we get to phase 3 and we can get to level 50, that is going to be alleviated a little bit. But Balance are going to now be able to get all 5 points in Vengeance, which increases the critical strike damage bonus by 100% of your Starfire, Moonfire, Wrath. You'd also be able to get 5 points in Improved Starfire, reducing the cast time of it by half a second, and also giving it a chance to stun, which obviously in PvP is amazing. Nature's Grace, where all your spell crits reduce the casting time of your next spell by half a second, 10% more damage with Starfire, Moonfire, and Wrath. And finally, obviously, Moonkin Form. Now, Moonkin Form in Classic Era is not the greatest. It is only going to give you and your party members 3% crit because, let's be fair, the armor contribution is kind of neither here nor there in PvE. Obviously, in future iterations of Moonkin Form, you would get mana back when you crit. It would have been nice for that to have been baked in as a talent, but we do know Blizzard can only really make radical changes to these abilities through the use of runes. Feral Druid are going to be able to get all the way down to Leader of the Pack now, giving their party members 3% crit chance. You're also going to be able to get that 20% extra intellect, all that extra stamina in bear form, and the extra strength in cat form. Fairy Fire Feral, which is going to be very nice. Honestly, when you go down the tree, some of these things you've had access to but only been able to get 1 point in. For example, Improved Shred. Being able to get both points in this now is going to be huge. The same way as being able to get both points in Blood Frenzy, where when you crit, it gives you an extra combo point. The problem is, without actually looking at what people have been theory crafting at the moment, just purely off what I know about Feral Druids, you're probably still going to want the 5 points from Furor. So people are probably going to be annoyed that you're not bringing Leader of the Pack, and you're not going to go all the way down to the bottom of the tree. But I suppose time will tell. And quite honestly, Resto Druid's pretty boring. Of course, you're going to get increased healing from different effects. You're also going to be able to get Swift Mend. Swift Mend is on a 15-second cooldown and does consume the rejuve or regrowth effect, which kind of hoping to see a rune that changes that at some point. You're also going to get Nature's Swiftness. I probably should have mentioned that because that is very nice to get that instant cast ability on a 3-minute cooldown. But overall, the talents are really good across the board. As I say, some of the specs have got more difficult choices to make, but talent-wise, I would say Druid is going to be in a really good place in Phase 2. Now, like I said, the feat and the waste runes, I would say, are 100% going to be in the game. Some of them very well could change between now and launch, but I think they're pretty safe to look at. Like, I genuinely feel like even if any of them change, it might be the odd one for each class, but I don't see them changing that much. But then when you look on Wowhead, there is also head runes, which we're not going to talk about, and there's wrist runes as well. But I want to stick to what we know, and we know we're getting feat and waste. So for the feat, the first rune is Dream State, where your damaging spell critical strikes grant you 50% of your mana regen while casting for 8 seconds, and it also increases nature damage dealt to the target by 20% for 12 seconds. Now look, this is a bit of a stretch, but the way that reads, it increases damage taken by the enemy by 20%, rather than increases your nature damage by 20%. That sounds like it could be a really powerful debuff that actually goes on the target, so other people are going to benefit from that 20% extra damage it's taken as well. I could be wrong, it could be purely for the Druid. But ordinarily, if it was your damage that it's increasing, it would say your damage, not the damage dealt to the target. So are we interested to see how much this is going to help out enhancement shamans, for example? Now they're going to have access to Maelstrom weapon, so they're going to be using things like Lightning Bolt a lot more. Because even though enhancement gets something similar in the form of Storm Strike, that is only increasing damage of the next 2 nature damage spells against the target by 20%. Whereas the Druid one sounds like it's just up for 8 seconds no matter what. And as long as the Druid's critting more than once every 8 seconds, it will be on the boss all the time. So yeah, for boomies, that's got the potential of being really nice. King of the Jungle is absolutely amazing. So this turns Tiger's Fury from this useless piece of junk, I was going to swear, but I'll be a good boy, into an actual useful ability, which is amazing. So Tiger's Fury now increases all physical damage you deal by 15% and instantly grants you 60 energy. It's no longer on the global cooldown, but it now has a 30-second cooldown. So every 30 seconds, you're going to be able to get that 60 energy, but also you're going to be able to increase your physical damage dealt by 15%. Now, this could actually make Rip worthwhile, because even when the 15% damage buff drops off from Tiger's Fury, you've snapshotted it onto the Rip, so the Rip will benefit from the 15% damage for the entire duration. So it might be Ferocious Bite when there's no Tiger's Fury, and Rip when you've got Tiger's Fury up. We'll see how that plays out. And then finally, Survival Instincts, which I thought was a bit of a strange one, I'm not going to lie, because we've got a balance rune, which is Dream State, which is absolutely amazing. We've got King of the Jungle, which is a feral DPS rune, which is, again, absolutely amazing. And Survival Instincts kinda sucks a little bit. So when activated, this grants you 30% of your maximum health for 20 seconds. After the effect expires, the health is lost, and this is usable in any form. Now, we know about Survival Instincts, and it's typically what bears use as a cooldown. Now, what they've done, though, is in addition, you regenerate 5 rage every time you dodge while in bear form or dire bear form, 10 energy while in cat form, or 1% of your max mana while in any other form. Now, what seems weird about this is it's increasing max health, but then you're gaining stuff when you dodge. Now, wouldn't this have been better if it gave 30% dodge? So then, even when you're in like your normal human form, when you're dodging, you're getting mana back. I feel like it would have made it more useful, because let's face it, in human form, dodge is going to be pathetic amounts. I feel like it's really weird, and neither of the two synergize together particularly well. But looking at all 3 of these, you can see it just sucks a little bit for Resto Druids, because Boomy and Feral, and even Feral Tank, are all getting something pretty amazing. Then Resto are like, oh, great, I'll just use Dream State, I suppose. At least then you can be pumping in some Wraths to get it to proc. It's helping the raid, keeping the debuff up, and you're going to get mana regen while casting. It's still a bit lackluster though, in my opinion. But next up, we've got Waste, and this should get everybody excited, no matter what spec you are. So first up, Berserk, which is an absolutely amazing cooldown. So when activated, this ability causes your Mangled Bear to hit up to 3 targets and have no cooldown, so you can just keep spamming it, and it reduces the energy cost of all your cat form abilities by 50%. Now, this lasts 15 seconds, and it requires bear form, cat form, of course, or dire bear form to activate. It also clears any fear effect on you and makes you immune to fear for the duration. So for Feral Druids, this is absolutely amazing in both PvE and PvP. And it's this and the Tiger's Fury rune which actually make me think there is a world where Deep Feral works really well, and you don't worry about power shifting with Furor, because you've still got no access to Wolf's Head Helm either. But it will depend on how long the fights last, obviously. If it's a really short fight, you've got 15 seconds of Berserk, you know, you're probably going to get 2 Tiger's Fury off, 1 before Berserk, 1 after Berserk, and now you start worrying about energy a bit more. I think it will completely depend on how long the fights last. But yeah, Berserk is awesome. Now, this is one Blizzard showed us themselves. So, Eclipse. Now, Starfire increases the critical strike chance of your next 2 Wraths by 30%, and Wrath increases the critical strike chance of your next Starfire by 30%. Both of these effects stack up to 4 charges, and both spells also gain 70% chance at all times to not lose casting while you're taking damage. That bit about not losing casting while you're taking damage is absolutely amazing. Like, just that on its own is a really, really good rune. But you can see they're doubling down on crit. And when you look at the other rune we was talking about earlier, where when you crit, it's going to give you a mana regen, and it's going to put that debuff, hopefully debuff, on the target as well. This is going to help you make sure that you're maintaining that at all times. While I find it quite a boring rune, if I'm completely honest, it's still a really good addition to Boomies. And then finally, Nourish, where it heals a target for X amount of healing, and it does an additional 20% if you've got a Rejuve, Regrowth, Life Bloom, or Wild Growth effect on that target. And this spell benefits from and triggers all effects associated with Healing Touch. It's good, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, the direct heal from a rune when you could just use Healing Touch anyway, even though Nourish is going to be a little bit quicker and it's going to get the benefit from having a hot on the target as well, I'd have probably rather seen like a rune of Swiftmend where it doesn't consume the hot on the target, for example. Or maybe it don't consume the hot on the target and reduces the cooldown of Swiftmend, so it's not as long as 15 seconds. I think they could have done something a bit better than Nourish. I don't know what you Resto Druids think. And that's all the runes on the belt and the boots. Now, don't get me wrong, we absolutely could see head runes or wrist runes, and I'm sure we'll find out more leading up to launch, but for now, they are the only slots that we know are guaranteed to come, so we'll just focus on those. Now, when it comes to big items coming for Druids in the next phase, Feral Druids should be extremely excited because the weapon choices are just nuts. From the STV PvP event, it looks like you're going to be able to get Bloodbark Crusher, which is basically an Earth Warden from TBC. They've even used the same icon, where it's increasing armor, giving big amounts of strength, agility, stamina, 80 attack power in forms, and it's got a really interesting usability, which adds 5 Storm Strike damage to your melee attacks, damaging the target and its nearest allies. So it's a little cleave as well, and it's only on a 3-minute cooldown. It hits up to 3 targets and causes additional threat, and that lasts 20 seconds. I mean, that's a great initial sort of snap threat, or just helping to get you some snap threat when you're multi-target tanking, but also extra damage as Cat as well. So that is really, really nice. Now, like you can see, there's been absolutely tons of items data mined from Gnomeregan, and I'm not going to sit and go through every single item. I just want to point out the ones that I would personally be excited to get as a Druid of all specs. Now, even though it's only a blue quality weapon, and we've just seen an amazing epic that you can get from the STV event, the automatic Crowd Pummeler has to make it on the list, with big amounts of strength being 22, 8 agility, 69 attack power, so not quite as much as the other one which had 80, but it has got a use effect on it, which increases your attack speed by 50% for 30 seconds. Now, we know Feral Druids used to farm lots, well, I used to farm lots and lots of manual Crowd Pummelers for raids. This is just, you get it once and you've got it forever, because it's just a cooldown that you've got to wait for, but it is still a really, really nice use effect, and this would definitely tide you over until you got your hands on the big one from the STV PvP event, because we don't know how much time and effort that's going to take. There's some really nice necks across the board, and these are going to be amazing for literally every spec of Druid, with a Gnomeregan Peace Officer talk giving you 6 stamina, a decent amount of attack power being 16, and 1% crit. The healing one's really nice with Intellect and Spirit and increasing your healing and MP5, and then the Piston Pendant for Boomies giving 9 spell damage and stamina, intellect and spirit, and you could even argue the case for Justice Badge for Bears. I'd just use the attack power one personally. There's also an assortment of nice rings that you're going to be able to get as well, with damage and healing for the Boomies, extra healing for your Resto Druids, and then a really nice trifactor stat ring with 7 strength, 8 agility and 10 stamina. Just ignore the resistances. But the trinkets are really interesting. So for the Boomies, you're going to be able to get one that gives damage and healing, but then it's got a use effect where for 10 seconds you randomly channel between 1 and 150 health into 1 to 150 mana. Now, I don't think Boomies are going to have the mana problems some of the other casters will have. In fact, I think a lot of casters are going to have their mana problems alleviate a lot in Phase 2. But it's still quite a cool effect. For the Ferals, you're going to be able to get an attack power trinket, which also increases attack speed. And then it's got an interesting piece of text on it. It says you may be able to push this experiment further. Now, I have no idea what this means yet, but I'm sure that will be made clearer during Phase 2. I'm not a massive fan of the Resto Druid one because I'd have much rather seen some plus healing on this, but with 7 spirit and 4 mana per 5, and then an interesting usability. Now, all of these usabilities are on a 30-minute cooldown, by the way, but this makes a target ally immune to snare and immobilizing effects for the next 5 seconds. It also removes existing snare and immobilizing effects. Now, remember, this is target ally, so you can use it on your friend. So if you're doing Warsong Gulch, you can bang it on the flag carrier. I'd imagine you can also use it on yourself as well, but it's quite cool that it's not actually just a personal trinket. You can help somebody in your raid. And while we're talking about interesting items, Idol of Wrath, increasing the damage done of your Wrath spell by up to 2%. Where it comes from, who knows, but actually getting an idol that's going to be beneficial for you as a balanced druid is pretty insane. And then the tanking one's got 7 stamina, it gives you 1% dodge, then on use, 1,000 extra armor. Yes, your movement speed's reduced by 60%, but still, if you're stood tanking a boss, what a huge cooldown this will be. I didn't mention the sets in the mage video because I didn't think they were particularly unique enough to worry about, but actually the druid sets really are. Part of the 3 set bonus is getting another 20 attack power in cat, bear and dire bear form, and for boomies you actually get an extra 2% critical hit chance with Wrath and Starfire. So I love the fact that for Druids, you've got very unique class bonuses instead of just the generic set bonuses that the Cloth Wearers get, for example, where it increases damage and healing done by 11. And this is obviously because it should only be balanced Druids that want the DPS leather gear. I just thought I'd throw that in there at the end because I do think that's quite cool. The fact that you are getting your own set bonuses that are not generic with everybody else, the same as Ellie Shaman get exactly the same thing, which we'll talk about in the Shaman video. Like I say, there's tons of items that we could sit and talk about here, but I just wanted to pick out the ones that I think are really, really unique. So what about professions? Now, we're not going to talk about all the small bonuses that you get from being enchanting or alchemy or anything like that. Instead, we're going to focus on the headpiece, because if you've looked through the Gnome Ragon gear that's been data mined, you'll notice there don't appear to be any headpieces in Gnome Ragon at all. And that looks like it's because they want you to get the crafted head. So if you're level working and you're feral, you're going to get this amazing head with 14 strength, 14 agility, 14 stamina. It increases your chance to hit with spells and melee and ranged attacks by 1%. And on a 10-minute cooldown, it's got a usability that instantly deals 343 to 757 damage to yourself, but also increases your melee and ranged attack speed by 20% for 10 seconds. Now, obviously, it's going to be great seeing people have this macroed into, I don't know, random abilities. Maybe they've got it macroed into Berserk. They've got practically no health and they use Berserk and this kills them. I am looking forward to seeing it happen because you know it will. But what an amazing cooldown. 20% attack speed for 10 seconds. I know it's a 10-minute cooldown, so you're going to have to pick what bosses you want to use it on. And you're probably going to look at what boss you need to pass on that particular week. But it's a really cool head. And then Boomy and Resto Druid looks like you're getting exactly the same one. So it's got stamina, intellect, and spirit. It increases damage and healing done by 21. And you gain a neuromatic meditation, allowing 100% of your mana regen to continue while casting. And it increases damage and healing done by spells by up to 50, and this lasts 20 seconds. Again, a really powerful cooldown both for Boomy and Resto Druids. The 10-minute cooldown sucks a little bit, but these are going to be amazing for both PvP and PvE. Now, as a Boomy, you would always have the option of being tailoring as well, of course, where that gives you stamina and intellect, increases damage and healing done by 22. So it gives 1 extra spell damage than the Leatherhead, but you do lose the 11 spirit. But this time, your usability reduces the mana cost of all your spells by 50% and increases the spell damage and healing by up to 50. So really, it comes down to whether you value the increased mana regen while casting or the flat 50% reduction in spell cost. I'd go for the spell cost personally, but both of them are just epic. Literally, they're epic. And that's everything you need to know that's going to be coming with Phase 2 for Druids. But how do I think they're going to perform? And ultimately, should you main one? I think Feral will be better in Phase 3 than it will be in Phase 2, because at the moment, you're not going to have access to Furor and going super deep all the way to the bottom in the Feral tree, and you're also not going to have Wolf's Head Helm. But I still think with the addition of Tiger's Fury working as it should and Berserk, Feral's going to be they're going to be really strong. They're going to have amazing burst potential, and you just hope that the fights are quite short, so that burst really gets you ahead quick, and then as it slowly drops, by the time you drop below other people, the boss is dead. Boomy's had some great additions as well, and I really do hope that the nature damage increase to the target by 20% is a debuff on the target and not a buff on the player. And Resto's just Resto. I mean, Resto's done really well in Phase 1. I think it will do very well all the way through the game. You're just getting stronger and stronger, your toolkit's getting bigger and bigger, and honestly, if you enjoy healing as a Resto Druid, there's no better time to heal as a Resto Druid. I'd like to have seen a bit more love from runes. I think the addition of Nourish really not giving you much option on the other slot, because none of them are really tailored specifically for a healer, I think sucks a little bit. That's why I think there's going to be other runes that are found that we just don't know about yet, but time will tell. But overall, I think if you're excited to play Druid, don't not be excited to play Druid. Don't not be excited, because I think you're going to have a really good time. I'm personally going to have a Druid as my main ult, so my mage is going to be the first to 40, then my Druid, and I'm definitely going to be playing Feral. But that's it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Again, thank you Rested XP for sponsoring the video. Links are in the description below, and I'll see you on the next one.